Good day all. Before I get to the subject of this video, I just want to kick things off real quick with a brief recommendation for all of you men out there, or aspiring men as the case may be. In this world we live in with countless influences competing for your attention all the time, just from all directions all the time, it can be very hard to know how to behave and what it looks like to be a moral person. That's why I wrote a book for single people, and that's why I always encourage all the time for people to regularly spend time with God in God's Word. That is our anchor. But it's also harder than ever to determine what a good man is supposed to look like. You could try and glean insight from television or movies, but you wouldn't find a very good example of a good man. Because Hollywood knows less about manliness than pretty much anybody else on the planet does. I don't care how buff somebody on the screen is, they wouldn't know a real man if they watched that real man wrestle a bear with his bare hands and win. And if you could, I mean, you could look at pop culture, but you see men wearing dresses and putting on makeup, and I mean, they think masculinity is toxic, and they want you to siphon all of the testosterone out from your body. Manliness is in a state of crisis in our culture. That much is clear. So where can we go to learn how to be a real man, a man of God? But I repeat myself. Well, I like to think that I have a lot to say on the subject, some of which I will share in this very video. But I'm just one man, and not the most interesting one, I have to admit. Liar! I've never wrestled a bear myself, but I do know somebody who has at least hunted them. I'm referring to my pastor. Pastor John Briggs has started his own podcast, the Gritty Men Podcast, to address the issues, spiritual and otherwise, that men are facing today. So if you want to know what it is to be a man of grit, someone worth admiring, someone who doesn't back down because he lives and stands for something infinitely greater than himself, then the Gritty Men Podcast is for you. So check it out today on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Learn how to be a man from someone with experience and with wisdom on the subject. And don't worry, fighting bears is not actually required. And if you're asking what Pastor John Briggs' qualifications are to teach you about manliness, well, just take a look at that beard and you have your answer. If you find value in the Gritty Man podcast, which you will, or if it's helpful to you, which it will be, then it will be worth the risk of John getting more subscribers than me. John didn't ask me to promote his podcast. He has no idea I'm talking about it. I just know it's great and I want to spread the word. It's just an honest recommendation. So with that, on with today's rant. So years ago, while I was working in a bar as a bouncer, I was all too often exposed to worldly influences. Alcoholic beverages, of course, smoking, objectionable music, dirty dancing, attractive girls, you name it. You name it, it was there. It was not the environment in which to meet virtuous people. And in fact, let's be honest, I did not actually expect to meet virtuous people there. One woman, though, in particular, who frequented this bar, we shall call her Lana, obviously not her real name, was near tireless in her pursuit of me. Now, I don't say this to brag or to boast or to paint myself as the latest man in any way. I'm trying to paint a picture of what some people can be like here, and to put some of you on your guard. So, more to the point, maybe it was the fact that I was yet uncorrupted, or perhaps she genuinely found me attractive. I don't know, but for whatever reason, she found me appealing. So she would flash me mischievous smiles every time she came into the bar while I was working. She would touch my arm while she was talking to me. She was not at all subtle about her desires to go home with me. Let's just put it that way. In the group conversation, though, with me, some coworkers, and some patrons, she happened to overhear the fact that I was a virgin. Her response to this revelation was something to the effect of, "Well, we will have to fix that now, won't we?" As if this is something that made me broken. Anyway, so she gazed at me long and hard while she was saying the words. She was shooting me a coy smile and staring me down with knowing eyes. Of course, the fact that I was a virgin on purpose was of no consequence to her. So after that night, Lana was at the bar even more often, trying to get and keep my attention, trying to make me fall for her, or just simply trying to get me to fall. Because let's be honest, some people, man or woman, don't want your heart. It's not a prize to them. Some people just want to see if they can corrupt your heart. It's like a game to some of them. Some women and men simply do not want love and commitment. They just want to see you fall down to their level, to see you surrender your own moral standards and to cross that line that you can't uncross, and to watch you crash and burn. It's like that famous line from Batman that Alfred says, some people just want to watch the world burn, and some of these people just want to see you burn along with it. So I'm not going to lie to you about this. Lana was a very physically attractive person. She was very alluring. And so I'm going to be honest about that. On more than one occasion, to tell you the truth, I came far too close to falling for her charms. I'm not so proud of it. It's just what happened. So at one point or another, I tried to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, I could try to pursue something meaningful with this girl. If I had every intention of trying to be a positive influence on her, to win her over to Christ and to change her life. Although to be young and naive. But I had to quickly and fiercely force the realization to my own mind that was a very bad idea. Born of a mind that was influenced by emotion and by an irrational desire. My honest motive was not to win this person to the Lord, if I was being honest with myself. No matter what I told myself, that was not my motivation. I just wanted the excuse to be around the pretty girl who was clearly interested in me, albeit that her interest was probably not actually in me as a person, but more to the point what she could do with me. And even if my intentions had been pure, and I just wanted to date her towards Christ, an approach that I don't actually endorse, at least not anymore, it would not have ended the way that I had planned. I was already burning with desire at this point, and she would have gladly broken me down, and I was fooling myself if I thought otherwise. She would gladly have taken advantage of my desires and breached my defenses. My willpower would not have lasted forever if I had gone down that path. 1 Corinthians tells us very plainly, do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. Now, Lana was bad company for sure. Okay, it's just plain and simple. Had I allowed myself to date her or to just go so far as to spend time alone with her, I have legitimate doubts that my morals would have gone uncorrupted. Had I let my guard down, she would have breached my defenses without a second thought. She would not have even felt bad about it. She knew what my stance was about premarital sex. She just didn't care. Right? Or if she did, it was only because it made her want to be the one to break me. 2 Corinthians 6:14 says, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with the darkness? Now, you should beware of non-Christian girls or guys, as you cannot expect them to respect your Christian values, and you particularly cannot rely on them to respect your boundaries when it comes to sex. That's a big one. One of the big reasons that I give for why you should not date a non-believer is it's quite simple. If you are willing to compromise by dating a non-Christian person, then you will be willing to compromise and do non-Christian things. It's just that simple. Don't kid yourself into believing that you are the one Christian with limitless self-control who can maintain your virtue in the face of all situations and temptations. That is a lie. And it's a lie that many people have told themselves and have fallen after telling themselves. Okay, far too many people have had that much pride in themselves, and they have been destroyed because of it. But as much as you should be on guard against non-believers in the dating arena, you should beware even more of the person who claims to be a follower of Christ, who claims to be a believer in God, but does not act like one. At least a non-Christian is generally honest and consistent about what he believes and does not believe. But I mean, you can trust them not to hold themselves to a biblical standard, right? But on the other hand, a person who claims the title of Christian, but lives as though he or she has never even heard of Jesus Christ or the Bible, is far more deceitful. I mean, they will openly call themselves followers of Christ. They will flaunt their Bible verse tattoos. They may even go to church once or twice here and there, but you may find that they habitually attend crazy parties. They get drunk on the regular. They treat sex as about as sacredly as would a hippie at Woodstock. I mean, and they will just try to convince you to join in on the good times. Don't be such a prude, they might say. Live a little. The world isn't the same as it once was. God's not gonna condemn you just for having a little bit of fun. Don't live by these insane, outdated rules, and on these stupid platitudes would go. And I must say this in response to all these things I have so commonly heard The world is just as sinful as it ever was. Okay, it's just as fallen as it ever was, and God's rules have not and will never change. They do not expire because the culture says so. Ladies, if you meet a man like that, someone who, whether he claims to be a Christian or not, lives for the ways of the world, he gets drunk, he parties, he pursues pleasures of the flesh, use the wisdom that God gave you and run. Please, for your own good, run as far away from him as you can. That man cannot be trusted. You cannot trust that man. He cannot love you properly because he just doesn't know how. He's incapable of it. He loves himself above all. He has proven that to you with his lifestyle. And that's what we call a narcissist. And narcissism is the foundation of all mental illness. He's crazy, is what I'm trying to tell you, okay? He doesn't fear God. Obviously, that means that he doesn't know God at all. Because if he knew God, he'd fear him well enough to behave well. And ladies, I'm going to ask you to be honest with yourselves here for a minute. If that is the kind of man that you find yourself being attracted to, if that is the kind of man you find yourself pursuing, then you need to stay single for a while. And you need to ask yourself, why do you like jerks? Where is your heart if it is not gravitating towards virtuous men who take God seriously, but rather towards the kind of men who think that virtue is a joke? If you've been dating men like that and you are complaining that men are terrible, don't blame men. It was you who pursued them. And I'm willing to bet that most of you knew better and you did it anyway. So check your own motivations before you blame men for all of your bad decisions. So I knew a lot of these kinds of girls in college. These girls, most of them claimed to be Christians, but they went out with the least Christian men they could find. Now, I remember one in particular. She went out with the most notorious playboy in my fraternity, and I told her not to fall for him. I told her exactly what would happen, and she kind of wrote me off like it's none of your business, blah blah blah. And then she was surprised when, after he had said all the right things, after he claimed that he cared about her, and after she had given her body over to him for nothing, she was surprised when he immediately moved on to some other girl as if she didn't matter at all. No remorse, nothing. Just poof, he's gone. So the truth is that, yes, that guy was depraved and vain. All he cared about was using women as trophies, sleeping with them, bragging to his friends, oh, look what I did, look who I did it with, blah, blah, blah. But in pursuing this man, that girl proved that she was just as vain as he is. In fact, I would say that all the girls who pursued him proved the same thing. Girls who go after men like that prove that they're just as bad as he is. Whether they will admit it or not. I know it's not a popular thing to say. I'm not here to be popular. I'm just telling you the truth. All right, so check your motivations, girls. Protect yourselves. Protect yourselves and respect yourselves at least a fraction as much as God your Father does. Just a tiny fraction as much. Both men and women have a responsibility to protect their hearts and their virtue. If you don't guard your heart, someone is going to be more than willing to stomp on it. Okay, that is a promise. If you are using discernment and wisdom, then and if you are guarding your heart and trying to maintain your virtue, there will be signs. You will probably be mocked. Not going to lie to you. There will always be those who seek to corrupt you and bring you down to their level and resent you if you refuse to be brought down. So if someone like Lana or my former fraternity brother cannot manage to corrupt you, they will try to tear you down. They will try to make you feel like less of a man or less of a woman, respectively, because you stand firm in your convictions and because you possess self-control, something which they have shunned altogether. If you don't worship the idolatrous gods of sex and of evil, then you must be torn down, dehumanized, and destroyed. Just ask the girl at the bar all those years ago who, upon my resisting her attempts to take me home with her, said something to me to the effect of, well, let me know when you're ready to be a man. Now, let me be very clear about this one. Okay, a real man is not someone who pursues his every fleshly appetite. That would be an animal. And that is not what we are called to be. A real man is someone who knows the meaning of self-control. A real man is not a slave to his desires and to his own body, to the desires of his flesh. A real man practices self-discipline. A real man is a protector, not a user of God's daughters. A real man knows how to love, and that comes from God's example. The secular world of fleshly desires knows absolutely nothing of that. You had best check your intentions before you pursue a member of the opposite sex. Are your intentions for love or for lust? All right, one is about giving, the other is solely about taking. Men, if the only thing you see when you look at a woman is someone that you can sleep with, your mind is not right for a relationship. You are not ready. You are not ready to love a woman because you don't know what love is. Sexual desire is natural, obviously. That's a part of love, of healthy love, but it has to be pursued the right way. If you are inclined to pursue that desire outside of marriage, then you are not man enough to love one of God's daughters yet. She is not for you. Boys, if you really want to deserve a good woman, change the way you see her. And if you want to change the way you see the girl, then just start by remembering who she really belongs to and what her heavenly Father can do to you should you harm or mistreat his little girl. I'll give you a hint, guys. My wife has an earthly father. And if I had wronged his little girl while we were dating, if I had tried to take advantage of her or pressure her into unsavory behavior, if I hadn't taken my responsibility for his little girl seriously, I would not be here right now to make this video. The federal agents would still be trying to find my body, one piece at a time. And God takes his role as that girl's father all the more seriously. 1 Thessalonians 4:3-6 says, "It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control your own body in a way that is holy and honorable, not in passionate lust like the pagans who do not know God, and that in this matter no one should wrong or take advantage of a brother or a sister. The Lord will have his vengeance on all those who commit such sins. As we told you and warned you before, you have been warned." You have a responsibility, men, to honor God's daughters, to learn to love her in a way that reflects his love for her. If you can't love her properly, then you should not have her. When my father-in-law handed his daughter over to me at our wedding, that was not an empty gesture. He was handing me both an honor and a responsibility. That was his little girl that he had raised for 20 years. He saw her learn to walk. He saw her play with dolls and plastic horses. He saw her help out her mother in the kitchen just by making a mess. He was responsible for her protection, her honor, her virtue, her leadership, and in a single moment, he entrusted that responsibility, that burden, to me. I don't pretend to understand why he trusted me with that, but I assure you that I do not take that lightly. The gravity of that gesture, of that trust, can be tearfully overwhelming when I dwell on it. My wife and I became one flesh that day, all right? And we are literally a part of one another now. And that is not something to shrug your shoulders at. I mean, I need my wife now as much as I need my lungs to breathe. And frankly, she kind of needs me too. I mean, look, my wife can't cook. And I mean, who else would do her laundry? If I wasn't here, it'd never get done. She would have to go buy new clothes every day. But on a more significant level, she needs me to love her, okay? And not in the worldly sense of the word. I mean, she needs me to love her in a way that reflects God's love for her. Okay, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. It is a heavy burden, but that has always been the responsibility that our Heavenly Father entrusts to us men. That is our lot in life, that is our calling, that is our righteous duty. We are to lead, to protect, and to, above all, honor his daughters. That girl who you find so hot, she is his. She is not yours. And you can only hope to be trustworthy enough that he will be willing to hand over the responsibility of her over to you. If you can't be trusted with his little girl, be ready to receive the wrath of dad. She is not yours to do with as you wish. You have been warned time and time again. If you mistreat his little girl, then you've brought it upon yourself. You have a responsibility to maintain her virtue as well as your own, whether single or married. You are capable of keeping your urges in check. You are not an animal, so you best not act like one. I'm looking at you, men. How about a modicum of self-control, men? How about just the minimal standard of self-control? By God's grace, we are capable of doing what is right, of acting and behaving contrary to how we so often might feel. Right? There is no excuse for you or for anyone who claims to be a follower of Christ to dishonor one of God's daughters. There is no excuse to try and pressure or try to compel a woman into sexual sin. She is not yours. And if you're behaving like that, she never will be. Nor should she be. God will avenge each of his girls. And so you could best be very careful with how you treat her. I don't care if you're single or married, you would best treat her well. People who live of the world do not know how to love. That's just the truth of it. I don't care if they like hearing it. They know the flesh. They know hormonal urges. They know lust, fornication, pornography, the indiscriminate pursuit of pleasure, and the desire to keep pursuing it by any means necessary. Things that can only harm. But love does not harm. Real love is life-giving. It's inspiring. It's self-sacrificing, kind, nurturing, protective, patient, hopeful. All of these things and much, much more. If that's not what you have, then it's not love. If he is not patient enough to wait until marriage to have sex, it is not love. If she wants you to choose between her and your moral conscience, it is not love. If he wants to take but he never wants to give, it is not love. If she can only attract you with the allure of her body and nothing else, it is most definitely not love. If you want to know what love looks like, look no further than God the Father, who is love, who is the purest example of love because he is love. Okay? He will show you how. You have his example, you have the scriptures, you have all this to teach you what love looks like. And if nothing else, always remember that every man or woman you pursue is one of his children, and he is a very protective father. So hopefully that will help you to remember just how to treat them. Learn how to love the right way before you start dating. And if you're going to date, make sure it's for the right reasons. Far too many people in our culture date just for recreation, just because they can, just for recreation. If your goal is not marriage, you have no business dating. You're wasting your time. And to be real with you, chunks of your heart, pieces of yourself, it's just a waste. Marriage is the only legitimate reason to date. If marriage is not your goal, then why are you dating? It's the only reason dating exists. If you're just doing it for fun, you are not ready to date. Dating without the goal of marriage is like shopping while you're broke. You are either going to walk away frustrated, or you're going to take something that does not belong to you. All I ask is that you take this seriously. Learn to love the right way before you try to take on the responsibility that comes along with true love. Right. Each one of God's children is precious, infinitely precious, more so than you can imagine to their Father. Just do them and do God the courtesy of learning to love them the proper way before you take a chance with their hearts. And on that cheerful note, thank you so much for your time, and God bless.